Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Keeping Up with Conspicuous. I am here today with John Lewis from Yavrio, a very exciting guest to have on. We're both a little bit sleep deprived this morning, I must admit, so this could be an interesting one. But how are you this morning, John?
Yeah, no, I'm doing great. It's just the consequences of having toddlers, but 2 cups of coffee with extra shots and a glass of water. I think we should be okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, you'll be fine. I've just got the trusty water, but we're all good. So, this morning, obviously, we called you on a little bit last minute, so we appreciate you coming on. And it's been great getting to know a little bit more about you and yourself and the business. And we're going to dive into it a little bit more today. But just for everyone that is watching that isn't aware of yourself, it will be great to know a little bit more about you and your story.
Yeah, sure. Well, I don't know what to say. I came from actually originally a maths and science um, teaching background, and I heard somebody say when I was first going into the Dynamics 365 industry, they said it doesn't seem like a traditional way to come into this industry. I was like, well, I don't really know what the right way in is, because I think for a lot of people. Obviously we know there's like a real skills shortage in D365. We always need more people all the time. We need more people trained up, more people coming in. And I think it's a kind of a secret sector that a lot of people don't know about,
Yeah.
and with a lot of opportunity in it. So yeah, I came through as a consultant, and then as a solution architect, working on a number of projects, and been working in solution and enterprise architecture in the space for better part of 15 years now, or thereabouts.
Oh,
And yeah, whilst I was doing that, we found I was interacting with a lot of clients who would often say, "Yeah, how do we do the bank feeds?" I was like, "Well, I think you can just use this piece of software, can you?" And then I realized no, that there wasn't anything really that resolved it. And I was having more and more demand because a lot of people were coming from smaller systems like Zero, QuickBooks, or Sage that enabled that. And I was kind of embarrassed because I don't like working with the second best technology or anything like that. I always want to be working with the best. So
yeah.
I thought, well, if Business Central doesn't do bank feeds, I could do that. So I started Yavrio is what I thought was a small business. I thought we'd probably need like 3 or 4 of us to kind of make it work, and now we've got 30 plus people going into multiple geographies, multiple countries, continents, multiple platforms, with a number of different businesses coming alongside. So been a bit of a whirlwind experience for us,
Yeah.
but loads of fun. And yeah, that's kind of how I got from uh, teaching one day to working with open banking the next.
There we go. I mean, it is a really cool story. I remember you first telling me I think it's so cool that you identified that gap. And as you said, you don't want to be the second best technology. So why not make the best technology? And how long ago did you start Yavri? I said it wrong earlier, didn't
Yavrio,
I? I
yeah,
said
no,
Yavario.
don't worry,
Got me
don't
twisted.
worry. It's probably our domain name that confuses people. Yeah, no, Yavrio. So we started January 2022. So we're just
Yeah.
going into our third year now. Yeah, so it's
Blimey.
quite the growth curve.
Yeah.
Yeah, that we're hanging on to here. Yeah,
Yeah. The original three that's now into 30 plus. So
yeah, that's right.
that's so good. And is there, I don't know whether there is, and we haven't actually discussed it, but how did you come up with the name? Is there a story
Oh,
behind this or?
yeah. Well, okay. So, firstly, right, because I'm quite passionate about people starting their own businesses in general, and I think there's a whole load of great ideas in the sector. There's so many creative people who work in Dynamics 365.
Yeah.
There's so many businesses waiting to be started by great people who are working there. So, but if you do try and start your own business and you're looking for a domain name, they're almost all taken.
Yeah.
We sat down and we did like the longest branding exercise with some friends, and then eventually we kind of gone through thousands of permutations of everything. It's like, no, the .com's taken, no, the .com's taken, and eventually said, oh man, what's your kid's initials? And I said, well, it's Aurora Valentina River, AVR. So we said, okay, AVR.io taken. AVR, and then we just started adding letters onto the front, and yavr.io, or Yavrio and Yavrio.com were available. And in Greek, it means Yavrio means for tomorrow as well. So it had a kind of nice meaning there. But I'd
Oh,
say a lot of the name came out of the fact that everything else is taken.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can try that for yourselves.
Yeah, I'll have a little look later. But that's quite cool though, and especially that it does have a secret meaning behind it that maybe you are unaware of to start, but hey, it all
There we
ties
are
in.
now. Yeah,
So
it's true.
yeah. So explain to me a bit about your business. So obviously you've come from that background within dynamics. You found this space in the market. So for someone that is completely new to your business, what is it exactly that you do?
For sure. Well, if you're working with, say, for example, especially Business Central or F&O or other finance systems, a banking and cash management is a core element to that. So your finance teams want to see things like, what's the live balance in my accounts without having to go and log onto their banking portal and go and get that? What's my balance history as a trend over time? How can I forecast what's coming? And then also when it comes to basic things like reconciliation, I still come across people who are manually typing in their reconciliation lines from a PDF statement or something or piece of paper they've got next to them. What we do is enable you to just, you press a button and your statement lines just appear in your bank rec or your payment reconciliation journal. And likewise, making payments. So to make payments, we often use a lot of people, not we, not us, use CSV files that were invented in 1972, so like 50 plus years old now. We shouldn't really be using 50 plus year old technology to
Quite old.
send payment data around the internet. It's super unsafe. So we're completely file free. So you never download files and load them. You never upload payment files. It is all done via secure API access directly with your bank. So when you want to make your payments, it eliminates the risk of somebody intercepting your files or making changes or overkeying a sort code and account number or something like that. So yeah, basically the three main things we do is you connect to your bank, get your transactions down, and send your payments up
Yeah,
with your accounts, and it's all done from the safety of your Business Central system or whatever else you want to use. And so yeah, banking's our core mission there, really. Yeah,
absolutely. I think that's so cool because obviously for someone like myself, I have to learn about Dynamics 365. Of course, I'm not going to have a technical, like the most extensive technical knowledge on it. But like I find it so interesting. So obviously came from this background of being within Dynamics, but then you've found this little area to know how to do that integration. So is that something that you sort of came up with yourself and just sort of put two and two together and then it worked? Or
sure. Yeah. So okay, it's actually quite complex. So um, whenever you're dealing with banks, the Business Central, a lot of systems used to be able to just build your own integration to these banks. And in about 2019, the UK and the EU introduced some new legislation to say, look, this isn't safe enough, it's not secure enough. They introduced some. I won't go into the name of it, but it's called PSD2, and it meant that you had to be accredited with the Financial Conduct Authority to be able to access the banks, and there were more secure ways of open banking in which you could make these transactions happen, and so on. Um, so when we first started, we knew there was a serious compliance and regulation hurdle that we had to overcome. So um, you have to kind of solve multiple problems simultaneously, and it means what we couldn't be was we couldn't just be a D365 company dabbling in banking and fintech. We had to have the banking and fintech side. So we've got whole departments of people who are focused in on researching these areas and making sure that we're always on top of the latest legislation and compliance and the latest technology and so on. Because you've got to have like the commercial side where you build the relationships in the industry. You've got to
yeah,
have the technical side where you understand the products that need to be built and you've got the ability to build them with the best people in the industry working on that. Then you've got the compliance side where you've got to understand, well, what do the banks need to have from us, and what does the FCA need to have from us and other regulatory bodies in the EU and across the rest of the world. That's a serious burden and a hurdle, but one that we work with well. And so we went from thinking that this was just going to be a little integration piece, because we originally thought of it as just an integration piece, into understanding that it's actually a whole fintech company. And so we have to work with some of the best in the business there as well. And so we've gone from how would I say this right? We've gone from thinking that we would be shipping this to a handful of companies to enable them to see their bank statements. So the other day we're getting pulled into meetings with an SVP at one of the major high street banks, to discuss how they're going to roll this out to their business customers more as well. So um, I think that it's really critical for people who are going into business to understand the importance of building a really strong team and a broad team. I think this is a good word for people who are listening to Conspicuous podcast as well. Finding the right team and working with them, because
Yeah.
you can't necessarily build a really successful business as an individual. If you want to scale it and grow it, you've got to anticipate and understand what the commercial hurdles are that are coming, the compliance hurdles, and if you want to do things like raise money and find the right lawyers and all of the other kind of weird hurdles that you don't anticipate when you think you're
Yeah.
just building a little technical piece. You might not necessarily know that. So I'd say, yeah, if for people who want to go and do something interesting, in terms of building a business, there's so much opportunity, but you know, build a broad team
The
and
team.
set out your vision and attract great people to it if you want to really succeed, I'd say.
Absolutely. Well, it seems like you have a really good team. I mean, uh, no one watching would know how you ended up on this podcast, but it's because your team member nominated you and done a great pitch to me about how fab you
Yeah.
were to come on. But like, I know it was a little bit joking and stuff, but you can just tell what a good relationship you guys have, and to have a partner by your side that has the same vision as you, is as open-minded to keeping up with technologies and let's try this, will this work? I think it's, as you said, it's so important to success, and
No,
you
you're so
definitely,
right. I can't say enough good things. We really do have a dream team, and I
yeah,
think I learned from a lot of the D365 partners that I've worked with and that we work with as a company now as well. I see the same thing, just a real commitment to excellence. But it's really great to just work with the best. So like our COO who got in touch, he was overseeing the OpenReach rollout nationally. We've got D365 people who've done multiple implementations at billion-dollar plus companies, and you can't substitute that kind of experience. We've got our chief strategy officer who ran strategy for prime ministers and international governments, and we've got even our sales team. We've got sales team members who studied at Oxford and appeared in Harry Potter, and in our product team we've got now like an
wow,
astrophysics PhD with a banking background coming to work in there, and it's just some of the time I look at the team that we built around it. It's really humbling because a load of them are better than me at the things that they do, and you want to be in a room where you can just look at your team members and know I can throw you the ball and you're going to run with that and do a great job. So
yeah,
yeah, finding real expertise in D365 and kind of like the periphery of areas that you need to be focused on is irreplaceable. Otherwise, if you can't, if you don't work with building the best team you have out there, then ultimately what you'll find yourself as a business owner is that you end up inspecting too much work, having to to relook over
yeah.
everything, and you can get into like a micromanaging thing. So working with people that you can trust and building the best team is has been really critical to what we've seen in terms of success there as well.
Well, I think it's such a credit to you as well. Obviously, being the CEO of a company, I think the fact that you just said, obviously, there may be some people in your business that know some things better than you, is such like a nice thing, nice and refreshing thing to hear. It's almost as though you're humble enough to know, you're all great at what you do, but also humble enough to know not everyone is going to know
I'm
everything
so
because it's
humble, Lucy. I'm
impossible.
I'm humble like you wouldn't believe. Yeah, no, I'm kidding. No, but it's true. Like, for the guys. So I think obviously when we first started, I was doing a lot of the initial design work for what we were doing, and then I look at what the product team and the tech team are doing now. I think, oh my goodness, they're doing things to a higher standard than I would have done it if I was coming at it fresh today. So yeah, seeing that and working with people who have that kind of expertise is great, and it's something that actually I saw in other parts of the other companies I worked with in Dynamics and with Business Central, is that I was working with people a lot of the time, and I would look at what they did, and I loved the fact that they knew things that I didn't. I
Yeah,
love the fact that I could go to them with a problem. Some of the time it can be embarrassing if you go to them and they're like, no, John, it's not good enough. You should have done it this way. But if you're working with people who are actually really supportive as well, then they'll validate you for the good stuff that you did, and then say, and also here's a way that you can elevate your standard.
Yeah.
maybe include this in your documentation, or if you want to do a data migration, think about it this way, or so on. So yeah, I think it's really good to be around people who challenge you to and who are better than you in respect. Otherwise, you'll kind of like plateau and stay at the same level, right? It's great to be challenged and
Exactly. And there is a lot of companies out there that, someone like yourself will come up with a fantastic business idea, and that plateau can happen from the get-go, and you don't really see that drive and growth. But as you said, if you've got the right team, if everyone's working to their skill set but also helping each other out, and you can build that success together, like you've seen, it's hopefully going to continue going this way, and I'm sure it will by what you say now. Just going back a little bit, I know you mentioned some of the hurdles or barriers
mm,
to this area of work as such, and I feel like one of the key ones you mentioned was about like keeping up with legislations and the legal
yeah.
side of it. Would you say that's the main barrier?
It's I would say the three main barriers you have that I see are the commercial of building the relationships in the industry, because you can't have a build it and they will come mentality. You can't just build a great
Yeah.
product. Great product does not equal great business. You have to have a great product. Of course, that's the technical barriers. The three main barriers: technical, commercial, and compliance for us,
Yeah.
regulatory. The technical is build the great product. The commercial is build the great relationships so that you can sell that, not just tell partners about it, but then continue to enable them to be activated on your product. And then the compliance and regulatory as well, which is more significant for us, I would say, than most dynamics-based businesses,
Yeah.
because when you're dealing with banking, you've got very low tolerance for failure. So, for example, we can't just show it to people and say, "Oh, I'm really sorry that your statement lines are all wrong, and that we've compromised your financial reconciliation." We can't show up and say that. We have to be 100% right every time on that. And
Yeah.
yeah, we're really sorry. You tried to send some payments, and whoops, they were 10 times the size of the ones you wanted. It has to be right first time. And so I think the compliance side, that the governments, various governments, that we have to adhere to the standards of, are putting in place are really good consumer and business protections there, so that you don't have fly-by-night cowboys coming out with a little quick integration that's not been carefully thought through. You have to
Yeah.
go through a really serious number of steps, um, and some months of legal work there in order to do that. And so that's really important, for protections for businesses, and it's a response to some of the
Yeah.
kind of things they saw there. But as we branch out internationally as well. So, for example, at the end of this month, we're releasing a whole load of new functionality. So we're releasing access to 14,000 bank accounts, not just in the UK and
Wow.
Europe, but in the USA, Asia as well. And if you want to deploy in the USA, then there's a whole load of regulatory compliance and tax work that you have to do there. So,
Yeah.
for example, let's say you're selling services into California, there's a whole load of data subject access pieces that you have to be in control of there. Now, I might sound like I know what I'm talking about. I don't. I've got a brilliant compliance team who have to do all of the research there and find out and check that we're compliant in all of the various jurisdictions we do.
Yeah.
So some of the time it's things like different countries, different states within a country, within the USA, for example, have different approaches to things like GDPR, and that
Yeah.
would affect any business. And then some of the time when you're dealing with banking, you've got that enhanced level of scrutiny that you come under as well, with a very low or zero tolerance for failure on those
Definitely.
things there.
Definitely sounds like
Sorry, that's a bit
it's
technical.
tough. It's not
Bit technical.
too technical. I think it's good to know though, like, as a business, you've had to put so much time, thought, research into it, and obviously it is paying off. Now, I know that you said relationship building is such a massive thing for yourself.
Mm.
You can't just have a product, which is so true. And I assume going into the future, you want to continue reaching out to new clients, building those partnerships, etc. But what other direction do you reckon you're going to go in the future? Is there anything that you aim to do?
So yeah,
World domination.
basically, will no. Yes, will when we go to some partners and clients, we often get asked to, because they like what we do. We get great reviews on our software, And people seem to be really big fans of how easy we make it. You know, you can get live in 5 minutes,
Yeah.
for example, with our software. Um, but as a consequence, we sometimes get asked to, you know, could you do something for us on this front and that front? And we try to keep our mission quite plain and straight. We're not trying
Okay.
to, you know, compete across 50 different lines of business with every single ISV out there. We're trying
Yeah.
to stay in our lane and be brilliant at the thing that we do, which is banking and banking integration. There are a lot of pieces to that. So there's a whole load of innovation you can do with payments. There's a whole load of innovation you can do in terms of taking payment as well. So, for example, our direct debit bit is launching shortly, and our card payment ability is launching shortly as well, which, you know, gives people the ability to take direct debit payments and card payments
Yeah.
within their web experience or BC experience or whatever platform they're working on. But we really do try to hone in on that core thing of banking and cash management, really. But in terms of, you know, how we extrapolate that out for growth purposes, our three main things that we do is we expand in geographies, we expand in platforms, and we expand in functionality. So in geographies, you know, we're launching USA and Asia. Um, uh, what day is it today? The 21st, about 2 weeks time.
How
Which is,
exciting.
it sounds exciting. It's probably terrifying, but it's exciting
Yeah.
too, you know, because you've got so many moving parts you've got to keep in place. In terms of platforms, we're launching shortly on F&O, and we've got some work going on with some other ERP platforms as well that I'll announce later. And then
Wow.
in terms of functionality, as I mentioned, you've got things like direct debits, card payments, and magic bank rec. So finally, you know, a proper one button approach to doing all of the bank reconciliation piece automatically, which, if you're not super into finance and reconciliation, is probably the least interesting thing I've said today. But
Cool.
if you're one of those people who has to go down and painstakingly match a whole number of lines, and you've seen how other automatic applications don't always do the job, then I think it's going to be really liberating for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I think a lot of our, you know, one of our values is really about just alleviating unnecessary burdens from people. So if there's
Yeah.
stuff that you don't need to do manually in this banking area, then that's something we want to help you with automation and magic. So
Absolutely. And magic. You had someone that was in Harry Potter, so they definitely are magical, obviously.
two
So
Harry Potter movies, actually, only as an extra, but you know, still, it's
they were
more
a
than I ever
wizard.
managed. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, obviously, it's been lovely speaking to you about your business, how it came about, the future of it, some of the hurdles business people face, etc. Now, I know that you've got a webinar. Is it a webinar coming up?
Yeah, we have,
Yeah.
and which will hopefully be going through. And well, not me. I'll get somebody who's far better, one of our expert sales team to be walking through and showing everybody how it all works. But we'll give them a bit of an insight into some of what goes on in the background with the banks as well. So
Yeah.
one of the privileges that we have is that we get to deal with a lot of these banks now on a daily basis, and so we get to understand some of what goes on in the background there. Will hopefully give some insights that will help people to make some decisions with their banking, and yeah, walk people through what it's all
Amazing.
about, how it works, and how easy it is. Hopefully,
And when is that? Just if people are interested.
it's Thursday next.
Yep.
And there's a time for it as well. But you know, 11. Somebody is holding up their hands and saying 11 with their 11 fingers there. So yeah, 11 o'clock.
Fantastic.
And yeah, on Thursday
Well,
the 28th.
what we'll do is obviously when we always post about the podcast. So for anyone who is interested, oh, I just hit my mic. I forgot that was there. For anyone who is interested, we'll pop the link in our stuff as well. But also, please follow John's page for Yavrio and get that like button on and click on the attend button for the webinar. Now, I know actually Thomas, the COO, is that's correct, isn't it? He is
That
COO.
is right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
He has commented the link as well, so I'm sure it will be everywhere if you are interested in joining. We've got a few people in the comments who say it's great to hear about the updates on the brilliant app, etc. So long may that continue.
And highlighting that I'm not the real John Lewis.
Yeah.
Well, one
Oh
of
my gosh.
one of two maybe, one of two.
Absolutely. Well, obviously, what we'll do if there are any further comments, we do have to wrap up quite quickly because I know our marketing lady is waiting for us to finish so she can jump on another call, and we said we weren't going to run over. But what we'll do, we'll answer any further comments in the comments for you. Um, but John, it's been lovely speaking with you. I'm sure it's going to be very eye-opening to a lot of people who have been watching to know what you do. Um, so yeah, thank you so much.
Really appreciate being with you today, Lucy. Thanks so much for that.
Yeah.
That was great.
That's all right. No worries. Well, have a lovely day, everyone. And as I said, we'll keep you all posted about the webinar.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
See you later, guys. Bye.